What it is, welcome back. Saved by the Game episode. What is it? What is this, 2?
Number two.
Number
what
2.
It is.
What it is. Oh, man. Today we're talking about GameStop, man. GameStop. Power to the players.
GameStop.
Yeah. So one of the things that kind of made me want to talk about GameStop, man, was that, I was perusing TikTok kind of as one does, and there was a GameStop manager's video that went viral where she was talking about what it's like to work at GameStop right now. And she's like, there's no customers in the store. Everything's on clearance. Every day she's worried about getting fired, right? And she was had a really big TikTok presence, but her video went viral and it's got billions of views. I'll leave a link to it in the description when we post this. But it kind of made me think about GameStop, man, and how it's kind of the end of an era. Right, I mean, GameStop was such a big part of the gaming community, and now it's kind of going by the wayside, man. It's kind of sad.
Man, it's kind of unfortunate too, because for me, my first introduction into walking into a video game store or any place that had video games wasn't, well, I mean, now it's GameStop, but previously it was Babbage's, right? And man, that name just... It has such a household, heartfelt feeling. Babbage's is, Babbage's could do no wrong. That's the mentality I have with a game store like that. EB Games could do no wrong.
Funko Land. You remember Funko Land?
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, man.
Fun fact, I actually purchased my first SNK fighting game from Funko Land, and it was Fatal Fury Special for Super Nintendo.
Yeah. The first time I ever actually pre-ordered a game was through Funko Land. It was Ocarina of Time. Yeah, because you had to cut it out of a magazine, man, and you had to bring it up there, and that's how you got the gold cartridge pre-order from Funko Land, man. So it's
taking me back.
Yeah, man. It's sad. A lot of people like to bag on GameStop, you know what I mean? But because of the way they are now. But I mean, they were such a, they were as important to the gaming community as I feel like Blockbuster was to, movie rentals back in the day. And it's unfortunate to see it be in the state that it's in, it really is. I think we used to frequent the same GameStop, didn't we? Back in the day?
Back in the day, yeah.
We did,
before we got really tight, Like, which GameStop do you go to? Because it was in Oklahoma City. It was the one across from Quail Springs Mall by that Old Navy. Well, they also had one in the mall.
They did.
And that was the one that I was going to before they shut that one down.
Yeah.
And then the one across the street. Yeah,
it
before.
Was a Babbage's.
Back in the day, it was a Babbage's, and then it was originally on the second floor. And they had actually moved it and transitioned it to a GameStop in the food court. So it was the only store in the food court.
That's true.
You remember that?
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Dude.
GameStop was like, yo, I'm going to get my video games and we're going to sit here and eat some pizza.
Yeah. And what's crazy, I know we're talking about GameStop, but it's like, another thing that's kind of gone by the wayside when I feel like GameStop was most popular was when like mall culture was still a thing. Remember when the mall used to be packed? The mall used to be packed, bro. Now, there's not a lot of people in the mall anymore.
I think you can order stuff online now.
Yeah, man, that's so true. I forgot about that food court GameStop, man. But yeah, the Quail Springs one by that Old Navy, man, that was bro stop. Like, I think one of the interesting things about GameStop is, even though I worked at the time and still do for Walmart, and I could buy video games at Walmart. There was a Walmart right down the street, and I could get a discount, but I still bought my games at GameStop because of the experience, man. Like, GameStop was like the Cheers of the video game space, to date myself with that reference, man. It was, you want to go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. Go to your local GameStop because people knew you. You could talk about video games. The experience of buying a video game was actually fun, and it was worth it to me to pay that extra, to pay that retail price instead of using my discount at Walmart to have that experience, man. And we both frequented the same one, which is cool.
Man, for me, one of my fondest memories was when I was living in Colorado Springs. So for me, it was my gaming really expanded in high school, like tremendously. Like I had a bunch of buddies, and we knew a lot of guys that had. I mean, we were gaming with adults
Yeah.
basically when we were in high school, right? Because we had guys that had graduated college or they were in college. They were much older generation of gamers who were playing all the fighting games, RPGs. They had collections as we do now,
Mm.
right? So I mean, they had all the classics and stuff was all pristine. And for those guys, they could walk into a Babbage's, a GameStop, a Funko Land. They knew who these guys were because they go in there and they shop. That's their store of choice. And the people behind the register, the managers, the employees, they knew it. They knew those people and they were able to go in and be like, hey, I know so and so. They've been shopping at our store for 3 or 4 years. One of our most valued customers comes in for every release. Even if we're sold out and one of our employees had the extra copy, whatever, we're holding it for them. That was the level of customer service, the amount of pride everyone had in gaming back then. And it's unfortunate, yes. Times have changed. We hear so many stories now about how GameStop and working at a GameStop isn't the most pleasant anymore, right? And that's very unfortunate. There was at one point in my life, when I was in college, I was aspiring to become a manager at a GameStop or work at corporate at GameStop. Never happened. Perhaps that was a blessing in disguise for me. Who knows?
Probably, yeah.
It probably was. I probably would have been a very miserable individual. Who knows? Or I could have been extremely happy. You never know. But the thing about it is that we're hearing the same case over and over and over again with numerous people at different locations, different states, same company, and it's the same message we keep getting over and over again. So you can't sit here and say someone's crying wolf
Yeah.
when you have different people in different scenarios, but it's the same company. Something has to change.
Yeah, no, you hit it right on the head. Gaming in a way is kind of in the same boat as technology. Technology is always moving forward,
Mm-hmm.
and I think with GameStop, it's just GameStop is kind of I feel like they're kind of generational, right? They were really because our generation was younger, right? Whenever GameStop had its heyday, so the big thing that we used to do was like midnight releases, right? That was where it was at, bro.
Man,
Midnight releases, right? That was fun back then. Like now that I'm older, like I just turned 40, so I'm not trying to. I'm not staying until midnight. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna go to bed early because I'm old. I'm gonna get. I'm gonna get up. When I get up, I'm gonna go get my game. Then I'm gonna come home and play. But back in the heyday of GameStop, man, the midnight release was where it was at, bro.
bro.
Let me ask you real quick. What are your top like 3 favorite midnight releases you've been to? Just 3. I mean,
Halo 2.
That was
Halo 2. And that was at the mall. That was at the mall GameStop.
Oh yeah.
I got there. I remember I got there at 10. Got there at 10 o'clock. I was like number 6 in line, and we were in line chilling. Guys start talking about, oh, I can't wait to play. Oh, I can't wait. I'm ready to get logged in and just go. I'm off tomorrow, or I don't have class tomorrow. I'm taking off the rest of the week. It's just conversations like that. And of course, now you have people that have gamer tags and sign-ons and all that. Back then, we were just getting into that, right? But being able to have conversations with complete strangers of all walks of life, it doesn't matter gender, race, color, religion, whatever. Your common ground was gaming. And when that conversation started, it was like you knew that other person, right? Because you had that understanding. You felt deep in the core who that person was because they were a fellow gamer. And the midnight releases do that. So Halo 2 was one. I don't want to keep calling out Halos because I did wait in line for a lot of Halos. Halo 3 was another one. And that one was at a different GameStop. I don't remember. I remember being outside for that one. I'm trying to think, what was another midnight release that I waited on? I can't really remember. It's been a while. I can't really think back that far, but I know Halo was for 2 of them for sure.
Yeah.
I've been to maybe 4 or 5, but I just can't. Oh. Low key, well, I can get away with it now because I'm sure this person no longer works at GameStop. Metal Gear Solid 2. So I don't believe it was necessarily a midnight release for this game. And I'm throwing it in here because I actually got the game a day before it released.
Oh man.
GameStop or Babbage's,
yeah,
right? Babbage's, right? We knew people working there. We were tight with them. They're like, hey, we're not supposed to release this till tomorrow, but they rung us up. They rung us up, and we were cracked it open. Went home that night. We were playing Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty.
Yeah, man.
Those are the days.
Those were the days. I went to a ton of midnight releases. To the point where that experience was so fun that I would find myself like a lot of games. You have those games where you're like, I want to get it, but I'm not really sure. The thing that would tip me over the edge would be the midnight release. If there was going to be a midnight release, I was probably going to get the game just to go and have that experience, man. I remember the first one I ever went to, oddly enough, was Halo 3. And I never played Halo before, but I was looking for something to play, and everybody was so excited about it. And I heard GameStop was doing a midnight release, so I went to that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to these forever. So Halo 3/Halo Reach stick out to me. Yeah.
I missed Reach, man.
Destiny 1 midnight release was awesome.
Did I do the midnight release?
I don't think you did, because I think you had to work, because we ever was talking about it.
That's right. I missed the midnight release for Halo Reach. I missed it for Destiny 1. And I was sick. I was just completely upset. I was devastated. Both nights. Because I was getting the play-by-play from you.
Oh, it was so good. The Destiny 1 midnight release was fire. Like, it was awesome. So, people were so excited. The conversation, and the line was great. It was a really good one. And then last but not least, I think, was Breath of the Wild in 2017, because it was the launch of the Switch as well, and I was really excited about it. And, a bunch of Zelda nerds all standing in line talking about Zelda. So those 3 are probably the ones that stick out to me the most. But I've been to probably, I don't even know how many, like a lot. But, I haven't really done that in a long time. I think the last one that I went to was Red Dead Redemption 2 with my wife, because she was really excited about it. And that was in October of 2018. And it wasn't even a midnight release. They gave us the game at like 9:30 or 10 o'clock, and we went home.
Yeah, that tends to be what they're doing now for some games.
But interestingly enough, is I feel like, this generation, a lot of people, they grow up in the convenience age, right? Where you don't have to wait in line. You can download the game and have it preloaded, and as soon as the clock strikes 12, you can start playing. You don't got to wait in line, all that good stuff, right? And one thing that GameStop used to have that kind of made you, besides the experience of going and buying games from them, was pre-order exclusives. They had some exclusive stuff that made it worth getting your stuff from GameStop. And I think a lot of it is that a lot of other companies kind of caught up with them, like Target, Walmart, Amazon. Why go wait in line at GameStop when you can 2 days ship this thing to your house and get it on time? The last thing that I pre-ordered online from GameStop, I didn't get until a week after the launch.
Yeah.
Whereas even Walmart.com, when I ordered the Series X from them, I got it the day it launched.
Yeah.
So it's just a tough deal.
That's what happened with me for Halo Infinite, actually. Because I had pre-ordered it, and it it came 3 days later, and then by that time I was like, well, everybody's playing. I'm just going to go ahead and download it. So I ended up buying it twice.
Yeah.
But luckily for me, I bought the collector's edition, so I was like, okay, well, I have a collector's edition now
Yeah.
that I don't need to crack open anymore. But it's kind of unfortunate that it's gotten to that point. Like I would, if I knew that was the case, I would have preferred just doing a midnight release.
Yeah.
If that was the case, you have like I've seen in very small scenarios where GameStop does like an early morning release or a evening release of a game, or like as soon as GameStop opens up, Pokemon released today, and GameStop has these Pokemon cards, and it's first come first serve. That was kind of what happened when Metroid Dread released on Switch.
Oh yeah.
So when I went to go pick up the special edition, everybody else Pokemon dropped that day, so everybody was focused on Pokemon. I was focused on Dread. I wanted Dread, so it is what it is.
Yeah, it's like I said, man. I think it's just the generation. This generation just kind of passing them by. Like we live in the convenience era. As more and more people buy games digitally, a store that focuses on physical media like them, is going to kind of go by the wayside. It's a little bit different for them versus like retro stores, right? Because retro stores can still stay afloat because the retro gaming boom is really in full effect right now. You know what I mean? But even I feel like GameStop really missed the window to really get into that, because places like Game Exchange and Vintage Stock have now basically become the retro gaming store chains, right? And
right.
GameStop tried to do the retro gaming thing, but they did it without really doing their research. So, you know, in the YouTube era, whenever if you're doing stuff wrong and you're doing bad things in the retro gaming, you're gonna get called out. And a lot of YouTube videos went up about don't buy retro games from GameStop. So that pretty much pushed them right out of that market before they could even get started. So now, man, that they sell toys, um, I went in there. The shopping experience for me, the last time I actually bought something there, really, really, it hurt to see it because instead of seeing the store that's like the shelves are full, the employees are happy, there's people in there, checking out's quick, it's cool. This last time I was in there, it took me 10 minutes to check out, 15 minutes to check out because this guy just kept like, "Are you sure you don't want to renew your Power Up Rewards card? Pre-order something." Like he seemed desperate, and I felt bad. I was like, "Man, dude, is it really this bad?" Like, because back in the day, you didn't really feel pressured because we were pre-ordering all kinds of stuff because that was where we got our games, and Game Informer was cool, getting your Game Informer every month. But even so, gaming journalism has moved online now. People aren't really buying Game Informer magazines.
You don't need a Mac. You don't need a Mac.
So it's really unfortunate, to see what's happening to GameStop. It's similar to kind of like how the arcade scene kind of died here in America. Once home consoles got better, there's not a lot of reason to go to the arcade anymore for that experience. And it's kind of the same thing is really happening with GameStop. And I really don't know what they can do to kind of stop the bleeding at this point.
Well, I'm going to take my gamer hat off for a second.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put my business hat on for a little bit. So the business model for GameStop previously, so let's go back to the years of Babbage's, right? The player, the gamer, the consumer loved going into this business. Why is that? Because they were welcomed. There was a variety. There was things that every employee knew about the game, right? They knew, like, hey, this one's good. It's a shoot 'em up or it's a beat 'em up or whatever. It's awesome. I'd probably say this is probably going to a good 7 out of 10. There's way too many games now to be able to do that kind of thing. You've got indie games, you've got limited run games, you've got various consoles dropping numerous games. So I get it. It's kind of hard to maintain that level of expertise when it comes to all games because we all know we have our genres that we love and we have our genres that we don't like. So for me, if I was in a store and someone's like, "Hey, have you played this game?" I'm gonna be like, "No, that doesn't interest me. That's fine. But going back to it, if I walk into a store now, because I'm really big on customer service, and
Mm.
my background outside of you know managing and retail and all that, outside of that, was customer service. So the first thing I do when I walk into any business, it's not even just a gaming store, is acknowledgement. If you don't
Mm.
acknowledge the customer, that's the first red flag that I see. So my last experience walking into a GameStop, which was actually 2 days ago,
Oh, interesting.
and I walked in, and there was a couple of customers in there, and they were walking out, and then the employee was behind the counter. They were on their cell phone. I walk in, I paced around, looked around, and to your point, the shelves were a little bare. Their clearance section was empty. All there was paper saying clearance, but there was nothing clearanced
Mm-hmm.
left, right? But I never got a, hey, how are you? How are you doing, sir? Do you need help with anything? That's simple business right
Yeah,
there.
for sure.
Because you want to bring the customer back in, that you want to have a valued experience. If the people working there don't enjoy their job and they're just there to collect a check, that's on the company, not the employee. Why? And we'll go back, and I know I'm going to start rambling here just from a business aspect, but people leave companies for a few reasons. One, namely the highest percentage of individuals that leave a company is generally because their direct management, they just don't
Mm.
mesh. Their direct manager is micromanaging, forceful. They're condescending, or they're not helping the growth path for that individual. We could go on and on about that. Or let's say you've got an awesome manager. You've got a great GameStop manager who's going above and beyond and going to bat for you in customer situations, or even from a company standpoint. That's the kind of manager that you want. That's a valued asset to that company. But maybe it's the company that's bringing all these
Mm.
forceful tactics, and you got to sell this. And I've heard many times where they're like, hey, a store has to sell, power rewards cards and all these memberships, and if you don't hit the quota, then you're going to be in trouble. I've heard that story
Oh
numerous
yeah,
times.
yeah, that's very true. There's a YouTuber. I think his name is Camelot 131 or something like that. He blew up on YouTube just talking about his career at GameStop, and some of the stories were really crazy. I've watched several other people who used to work there talking about it too. That it became basically, instead of you working in the gaming industry, you basically just felt like you were just hustling credit cards because it was all
Yeah.
about selling that power up rewards card.
Mm-hmm.
People would talk about how they would have to, like, they would literally like lie to customers and say they don't have a game new to make them buy it used, because the profit margin is much higher on used games, right, than it is on new games, because if you have MSRP, which you kind of have to follow, right? That's why consoles are pretty much the same price, and games are much the same price everywhere, because the profit margin is going to be the same on them no matter what. Whereas
Yeah.
used games, that fluctuates, right? So it's a lot of their business practices have gotten them in trouble in that regard, especially in the YouTube area. They're getting exposed for those things by YouTubers. I remember when the trade used to be pretty good. Trading value used to be okay on games. Now you could walk in there with a cure to cancer, they give you $3.50. You know what I mean? It's really kind of wild. It's worse than some retro stores. There's some retro stores out there that are straight up criminals with their trade-in money they give you.
Mm-hmm.
But GameStop,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's crazy.
I,
The how they lowball you now.
the the last time that I had amazing trade credit was when it was called Babbage's. They had a list of games.
Yeah.
They'd have a list of games on a board, like the top most wanted list of games for trade in. I have multiple of those games. Like, for instance, Dragon Ball GT Final Bout on PlayStation 1. So I'm dating myself here. I'm going way back, right? So when that game released, I think it was 1998. It got released 97, somewhere around that time frame on PlayStation 1. Well, you move forward a couple of years, let's say 2000, 2001, Babbage's is offering 300 in credit for that one game. They're offering $80 to $90 for Iron Hander for that one game. They wouldn't dare give you that now. They wouldn't dare. You would have to, like, you might get that for a console. Or both, two consoles combined. You might get that.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that for a game.
And what's interesting is they'll take retro games. Well, they used to. But
well, some. They have a list.
Yeah. But their retro game prices, especially for cartridges, are so lowball because they don't check them to validate that they're real. So they just assume they're going to get several fakes. So kind of like everybody pays the price for it, right? You know, oh, I have a copy of Earthbound, $25. There you go. Because they're not gonna validate it. If you order PlayStation 1 games from them now, it may have a case. It may just be the disc. You really don't know until you get it.
I don't like that. I don't like that business model. It's a horrible model. And I have to say this because this is one of the current things that drives me up a wall at GameStop, and they have to stop doing this. Is if I go in and I want a new game, when I say new and when you're selling it to me new, it better damn well have some shrink wrap on that joker. Yeah. Not you took the shrink wrap off because y'all tested like, oh, this is the only one we got, blah, blah. Oh, but it's new though. No, it's opened. That is used. I don't care if you put it in the system for 5 seconds. It should be treated the same way as if I just bought a car. As soon as I leave the dealership, that depreciated. That's the mentality they need to be taking with that. That's robbery to me. That's a bad business model. And I know we're not trying to bash it all the way here, but I'm just saying, like, yes, I do shop there. And for those of you out there that say, like, well, if you don't like this, then why you shop there? What are my other options outside of just going online and buying it?
Yeah.
Or potentially finding it at a retro store that doesn't normally have modern games readily available in stock, even the latest ones. Yeah. There's not a lot of options there anymore, right? We had all these other video game stores that now have, honestly, early 90s and early 2000s were bought out by GameStop.
Yeah. So yeah, really, I mean, for new games, you pretty much, it's, Amazon, Target, Walmart. That's pretty much where you're gonna have to go to get games. And what's interesting is I feel like I remember going into Best Buy because Best Buy carries limited run games physically in the store, which I thought was cool.
Are they the only one that do that?
That I know of. And I thought, wow, that was a really kind of a missed opportunity with GameStop to start partnering up and start carrying limited run games and stuff like that. Give people a reason to go to your store. Nowadays, because I like to collect limited run stuff, if I'm buying Best Buy, I'll swing in there. See if they got anything new on any new limited run stuff that I don't have, right? I feel like that was a missed opportunity for GameStop to start making themselves stand out and be unique from, a regular store, right? Because the thing is, even though physical video game media is dying, you have places like Best Buy and Walmart and all that. Well, Walmart sells all their stuff besides just video games, right? Best Buy is a complete electronics store, but GameStop is just a video game store, right? And just a video game store is just not enough anymore. You have to have this kind of a diverse. You either have to have a diverse range of video games and collectibles, or you have to just diversify out of just video games. And they try to do that with things like Funko Pops, but Funko Pop is in its own problem right now because they've been mass produced to the point that there's way more supply than there is demand.
Oversaturated. Beanie Babies all over again.
It's what it is, yeah. That's 100% what it's like. So I think they had a lot of opportunities to, right the ship. And one thing I thought would really help them is, Reggie Fils-Aimé, who was the CEO of Nintendo for a time, I think he either took over GameStop or joined the board of directors. And I thought, okay, this guy ran Nintendo for a while. Maybe he can help right the ship. But I think that at this point, it's just been going the wrong direction too long for them to be able to course correct. Father Time is undefeated, and Father Time has beat them, unfortunately.
Well, I think, to be honest, and GameStop probably would have bit the dust like Toys R Us, the Bed Bath and Beyonds of the world, and the Pier 1s and all those not department stores, but the big box stores that have now filed bankruptcy and then disappeared into the dust, right? The saving grace for GameStop, because if you go back 2.5 years ago, that was the talk track. They were in that talk track with those companies. GameStop's stock prices tanked. They're closing stores. They're not profitable anymore. It's going to be another one that we're going to start seeing hundreds of stores close down over the next year or so, and then there's going to be a select stores left, and then it's going to fade into the sunset. What happened though is retail investors, and you start hearing all this crap about GameStop stock going through the roof. That put the name back in people's mouths.
Yeah.
You started seeing, and surprisingly enough, this, of course, this is happening during the pandemic, but as, restrictions are starting to lift, GameStop is actually seeing more traffic because that name is being promoted so much in the news. Regardless if it's just stock and investing, GameStop got the pump that they need to survive, which is probably why, the fact of the matter is their stock price should still not be as high as it is right now. It should be dirt cheap, but it's not. Yeah. It should be bad because they're not profitable. And if they wanted to turn around, that was the time to do it, because that company, with the stock price being that high, they could be profitable there. They can make really good sound investments to re-energize the company, energize the employees, change the business model, and bring it to the public to where they're like, this is a brand new GameStop. This is a brand new experience. We want to bring it back old school. We want you to come back into the store. Yeah, because guess who they're competing against now? They're competing against the Microsoft. They're competing against Sony. They don't, look at it from this case. Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft don't need E3 anymore.
Mm-hmm. They don't.
Right? It's the same mentality. I don't need you. I can get online and do this. Same thing with GameStop. It's cheaper for me as a business to no longer produce a physical copy of a game. I can just sell it for the same price online, and I get all the profits. I can cut out the middleman.
Yep.
That's what's happening. They have to make the change.
Yeah, and not to go too far off into like stock market stuff, but what happened with the GameStop thing was actually interesting. So a lot of people, and this is kind of how I understand it. I'm sure someone in the comments who's a little bit more smarter about this will correct me if I'm wrong. But hedge funds and stuff like that, one thing that's really popular on Wall Street is what's called short selling stock, right?
Yeah.
GameStop is going in the toilet. So what short selling a stock basically means is, I say you have some GameStop stock, right? I borrow that stock from you, and I go and I sell it on the open market with an agreement that I'm going to give you your shares back in 6 months. Mm-hmm. So I take the stock from you and I sell it on the open market for $25 a share. Say you got 2 shares. So I sell it for $50. I come back a month later when it's time for me to give you yours back, and I buy it for, $15 a share. So I spend $30 to buy it back, give it back to you, and I pocket the profits from it, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people were short selling GameStop, so a lot of people decided to kind of, as a kick in the teeth to like hedge funds and all that, and people who short sell stock, to just drive the price of it up as far as possible. So all those people that had borrowed stock to short sell were now screwed, because now the price has gone through the roof, and now they're going to have to go buy that stock back or at a loss. So that's how I understood what happened. There's a subreddit called like Wall Street Bets or something like that was talking about it really big whenever it happened. But that's kind of how I understand what happened with GameStop. So they kind of got this, to your point, this like inflated. The value of their company got inflated far beyond what it's actually worth, and they probably could have used some of that money to kind of maybe try to right the ship, move into some other ventures, or just rebrand. But they did not do it.
Perfect time.
And now they are kind of
they're going to fade into the sunset.
Yeah, the end I think is near, and it's sad, man, because it was. I look back on GameStop fondly. It was part of they were a part of gaming culture. A lot of good people worked at, especially the GameStop that I frequented. A lot of good people
Yeah,
worked there.
great people.
Um, it was the experience of buying video games from them was actually fun. So
Yeah,
I I don't know, man. What do you think? How much longer do you think GameStop has?
I can't call it. I don't know.
Can't
I
either.
mean, right now, let me just do a quick, because I'm gonna do it just based off of. So yeah, GameStop, and they did do a stock split, so they're at $17 right now. That's more in line of where they were a couple of years ago before all this nonsense happened.
Yeah.
It's I don't think they're going to survive, a full economic recession. I really don't, because if they're already bleeding right now and they're not getting any foot traffic into their stores, we're going to start seeing more stores close, which is
Hmm.
unfortunate because there's a lot of great people that work at these stores, and you know they need the jobs and they need to pay bills and put money on the food on the table for their families as well, right? Um, but it if they don't already have something planned to change and to make things better and to morph into this new way of gaming and how we purchase and how we consume video games, they're going to fall into the same bucket Blockbuster fell into.
Yeah. Yeah.
Couple
Blockbuster's a good
years.
example. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think that maybe they're. I think they're really their big glimmer of hope would probably be to move to an online only thing for maybe like collector's editions and things like that.
Yeah.
That may be what's best for them. It's unfortunate that they really missed the mark on dealing in retro video games. I think if they would have done that right, they'd probably
I think they'd be in really good shape
they'd be in
had
really good
they.
shape.
And to be honest, and they have the distribution, right? They've got a huge. HQ is here in Texas,
Yeah,
right? So they've got numerous stores here. They've got a huge warehouse, maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes surrounding area from here. But you have all that in bulk at a warehouse,
hmm
right? Even the retro games. And I'm pretty sure they may even have a backlog of older games in there. Like, I've worked at warehouses before. Even Blockbuster, when I was working for them for a summer, they had tons of old games, brand spanking new, just sitting in in inventory bins, not doing anything with things. They're just there. So that tells me that they may have a supply somewhere of something.
yeah,
Utilize that, rebrand. You know, we're modern and we're retro. We want to bring in the classic gamer and mold it with a modern gamer. I mean, that would work. To me, that would work.
yeah. No, I agree. I think they could also go the limited run route, like limited run games
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
they cater to a very niche, market of people who want physical copies of digital games, and they make their own collector's edition, and they work with people like Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony to be able to create these physical runs of games. I think something like that could potentially help them too. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that if they keep going the way they're going, it's just gonna that company's gonna fold, unfortunately. So
Well, so let me ask you this question, because you brought this up a little earlier. That you could buy from a Best Buy, a Target, a Walmart, or whatever local department store, depending on who's watching this and what you have locally, maybe
yeah,
someone else, right? Why GameStop, right? Outside of the nostalgia from the past, we've lived through that era long enough now to know that, okay, GameStop is GameStop, and we've seen that. So why is it important to you for it to be that old school GameStop now if you can go to any other store that has all the same options?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, because you hate seeing a company that was a part of it. I think this is nostalgia, right? You hate seeing a
Yeah.
company that you have such fond memories of fold, right? Like I thought it was sad when Toys R Us folded. And I
Oh,
had
that
been to
hurt my
Toys R
heart.
Us. Yeah, I had been to Toys R Us since I was a
Mm,
kid. But
mm.
they were secretly the plug back in the day, though, for video games. If it was out everywhere, Toys R Us had it.
Yeah, but
Like
it was high. They was high though.
you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
They were overpriced.
A bit, you know.
I was like, man, that draft is high in the sky right now. I
Yeah,
need you to
yeah,
lower them prices
yeah.
to the ankle length.
They're like MSRP. Those are more like guidelines than actual
Yeah,
rules.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Because I remember buying Xenosaga from there, being mad as hell because I paid like $10 more than it was supposed to be because it was out everywhere. And that's the only place I could find it.
oh
Um,
yeah,
but I think it's important, for me. The more competition there is for companies, the more companies have to strive to be better to get your business. So I think having a lot of companies that do these things and sell video games is healthy for that market, right? Because if
yeah.
there's only one company that sells video games, that company is going to be able to do whatever they want because they have the monopoly and they can.
Yeah.
The thing that keeps companies honest is other companies. That's it. Other companies that do the same thing because you have to do what you can to attract their business, right? It's like walking down the street in a bazaar. You ever see like in like those other countries where someone walks down the street and there's a bazaar and they have people selling everything. They're like, "Come here, I got this for this price." That's
Yeah.
essentially what companies are doing, just not just via their like policies and what they carry and deals they do. It's all about beating those other companies and vying for your business. You take all these other companies away. Now I don't have to try very hard because I'm the only game in town.
You hit it right there on the
That's
nail,
it.
right there. The change, the shift in the business happened when they consolidated all the neighboring companies when they bought EB Games. When Funko Land was no longer there anymore.
Yep.
Right? You had all these you had Babbage's, you had EB Games, you had all these other video game stores. And now when you consolidate that and say, okay, hey, Babbage's is going to change into GameStop. GameStop's bought EB Games, and they bought so and so and so and so. Well, who's left? You just said it. GameStop is the only one left, and if you got the monopoly, you can do whatever the hell you want to do.
Yep. And
Wow.
when there's not a lot of other companies really like hardcore in the video game business, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you have Walmart, Walmart and Target and all that. They sell video games, but
They
they're
don't
a
have the
retail.
full variety.
Yeah, well, they're a retail store, right?
Yeah.
So if it's a slow month for video games, it's not a slow month for their bottom line because they sell toilet paper and groceries and stuff like that. Whereas GameStop also built their model on used games, right? Well, that's fine, but you know used games just aren't gonna. No one's gonna come in and buy your 75 copies of Madden 2004. Like, no one's doing that. Even like Walmart was doing trades for a while. They actually had a program for a little bit, but it did not last long because they realized, like, wait a minute. At the end of the day, we're taking these trades and we're giving you money for them or whatever, but they're just gonna sit here. You know what I mean? And that's oftentimes what's happening with GameStop. I mean, yeah, retro stores are able to get away with it a little bit better because they diversify to other things, right? You go into most retro stores now, even Game Exchange, they sell even Game Exchange itself, they don't just sell video games. They sell phones, electronics, Magic cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, all kinds of different things they sell, right? Games are just part of their store now. It's not the whole thing, right? Just
Makes
having a
sense.
video game store now, especially if your main focus is new games and only used games from last generation, that business model is not sustainable.
No, it's not. I mean, like I'll be honest. I'll go into a GameStop, and the first place I go is not their modern section. It's their retro section. What they have,
What they
which
have,
which isn't very good.
which retro
You
to
know,
them is Xbox 360 and PS3. That's pretty much as far as it goes back now.
if that,
Yeah, that's
now
it.
now it's Xbox 360, Wii U,
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo Wii U, and then some DS games. That's all you ever see in there. You rarely see PlayStation 3 down. But they'll take, they have a list that they'll take in terms of trade in, But I could go to my retro store and take the same trade and get 50% more,
Right.
right? Depending on who I take it to. But to that point, though, the difference where you said GameStop is looking at the modern and the previous gen, right? Whereas a retro store was going to look at everything across the board. But the traffic that really comes into those retro stores is where you have the heavy titles, the
Yeah.
real crazy heavy stuff. That's what brings people in, because like, ooh, that's the holy grail right there for this particular console or these consoles. That's what moves the traffic in.
Yeah.
And as long as those retro stores continue to get that and promote that type of, quality game, that can't find that at a GameStop, can't find that at a pawn shop or whatever. That's what's going to drive that. And GameStop has an opportunity to do something like that. They just choose not to, because their main focus is, to your point, modern.
Yep. Modern, used modern games, and I
Yeah,
mean,
use modern.
it's one of those things now that, again, even in the convenience area, when I do go out, right, like I'm like, okay, if I have a choice between Walmart and GameStop, right, for a game that's going to come out, let's just say take my discount that I get at Walmart out of the equation. Well, if I need to go to Walmart anyway because I got to go buy groceries and stuff, and I know the game is there, why not? I'm just gonna pick it up while I'm there. There's not really a reason for me to go to GameStop, right? Even going back to like places like Game Exchange, you could walk in there and to look at a plethora of things like, man, I'm gonna check and see if they have any new, Neo Geo games, right? I'll just use you for example for Neo Geo. And they don't, but you're like, oh snap, they got some comics over here. Oh, maybe I'm gonna pick up some comics. I've gone in there several times and picked up like a shirt or a pop or like a random other cool collectible. So you're still getting people to come in your store and spend money, even if it's not on like video games. Whereas GameStop, that's it.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I have bought some decent swag from GameStop.
Yeah,
They have some decent swag. I mean, maybe a little overpriced at times, but when it comes on clearance, perfect. And I guess you know what? I would probably say it depends more on location
true.
more than
That's very
anything.
true.
Because depending on what state, town, city, country you're living in, the variety is going to be completely different. The layout. I mean, I've gone to numerous GameStops in the metro area here, and all of them are different layouts. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a large one that's connected to a Barnes and Noble. Like literally, you can literally walk into Barnes and Noble through the GameStop and vice versa. Like they're connected together. Yeah, it's just different. It's large. It's overly large. GameStop. It's wide open. It's like they have too much space, but they've got large statues, gaming and comic related statues in there that can be purchased. They've got a lot of memorabilia and Nerf guns that are associated with video games and lots of different clothing, and then they've got the games all along a wall, real plain, generic, and then they've got this long register area. One person behind the register.
Mm-hmm.
Massive store. You could hear a pin drop how big the store is, but one person at the register. How are you, sir? How are you? Hello, hello. That's that's what it's like at that store. And then you go to the one up the street and you can barely walk in because it's so tiny.
It's like a closet.
It's like a closet. Yeah.
Game closet.
Game closet.
Yeah.
And the variety of things that you find there is not the same. So I get it. It could be that, hey, it's more of a personality trait of the store, right? Each store has its own personality, kind of like a game exchange. I've gone to numerous game exchanges, and like the game exchanges that I've gone to in Oklahoma versus the ones here in Texas are different.
Yeah,
they are different.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's one of those things where we live in a time where things are easily accessible at the tip of our fingers.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even have to leave the chair that we're sitting in to get them. The most we have to do is get up, walk to the door, pick it up, try it on, or play it, or whatever. and that's it. And if it doesn't work out, guess what? Put it back in the same package and ship it right back out until we get the new one.
Yeah,
That's my convenience
yeah,
behind ordering online is versus me just going to the store and I could buy that tangible item right then and there, and I know it's correct because I'm validating that it's correct right then and there. That's what I would prefer, but convenience is a thing.
yeah. I mean, the digital age is really driving that. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, man. I don't know. It's sad to see, but who knows? I mean, I know one time they partnered, I think, with ThinkGeek, but I don't think ThinkGeek is around anymore. And
No,
so,
I mean they basically bought out, or they've acquired or absorbed a lot of those. The EB Games, the Think Geeks, and all that. All that got absorbed under GameStop, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah. I wonder if any other, if like maybe like a merge with another company would help them. As companies diversify and things like that. One company you brought up earlier was like Barnes and Noble. I mean, even look at them. Even though like
Well, no,
digital,
they're under Barnes and Noble.
oh, are they?
Yeah,
I did not even know that.
yeah. That's why that so it's under an affiliate under Barnes and Noble
Mm.
that has like a large number of shareholding for GameStop. So that's why this particular store that you would see, I guess you would probably call it more one of those flagship stores because it's so large and it's connected to a Barnes and Noble. That's kind of how they do that.
Ah,
So
okay. Because I was thinking
kind of
about
like
Barnes
how
and
like a
Noble.
KFC or KFC and Long John Silver.
Oh, Long John Silver's A&W.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
yeah.
like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. Yeah. So I was thinking about Barnes and Noble too. I was like, man, if you go to Barnes and Noble now, like they have kind of diversified too, right? Like they sell like board games and a bunch of other stuff too, not just books. So I think that's kind of helped them as well. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's a sad day. I will be sad when GameStop closes its doors if that happens, because hate to see it.
I'm going to be
But
optimistic because we've been optimistic through all of our years of gaming,
yeah,
right? And we've always said like, hey, I hope one day that we're able to do this, online with friends and gaming, and it came to fruition, right? So maybe, just maybe, I'm gonna stay optimistic just because this just happens to be one of the few hobbies that I just absolutely love. Of course, you love, of
yeah,
course, and I refuse to let myself see another childhood store that I grew up walking into with the utmost excitement. The anticipation of getting to that location to walk in and just say, yes, I'm here. Everything I need,
bro. It was like, yeah, that excitement was really a thing, man. I mean, I used to work, as I worked overnight when I used to go to GameStop, and we had that weird like 12 to 9 shift, and I would get off at 9, and I would just go get over that GameStop by like 9:30, chill in the parking lot until they open up at 10, and just go and just look around and hang out before I went to bed. Yep. It's kind of a thing, man. So yeah, it's sad to see, man. I want to be optimistic as well. I hope that they're able to find some way to stay in business and stay open and kind of give back that experience to the people that thoroughly enjoyed it. So yeah, I think it's a good spot to call it, man. I mean, we've got some definitely got some good stuff in there about GameStop. So I think next episode we're going to talk about collecting, man. Collecting tips for beginners.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
That'll be a good one. So, yeah.
Hey, G, where can they find you?
You can find me on all social media at Zelda Hat Guy. If there's a Zelda Hat Guy there, it's probably me.
Sweet. Well, you can find me, Retro Neo Ness, on Instagram. You can also find me on the Retro Neo Ness YouTube channel. So try to post something at least once a week related to not just Neo Geo stuff, but all things video games. So check it out. And we'll come back and hit you again with how to collect for beginners real soon.
Indeed. We out of here.
Later.